Fever Video 2, I will be taking you through some of the rigs and baits that have proved so successful for me in the past. We start here on Linear's Poplar Lake. Over the next 90 minutes I will be showing a selection of rigs which I believed were best suited to the waters fished at the time. It would be impossible to show every type of rig in use today, but I'm sure that the ones I do show will help cover most situations. This programme is not designed to be solely about rigs and baits, but is also intended to convey the enjoyment and excitement of carp fishing, as well as to show some of the other sides of this interesting sport. Here I had just hooked a fish close to some sunken branches, and the carp had reached the edge of the sanctuary. Patience was required at this stage whilst line was gained slowly, but this was a moment when things did not go right, and unfortunately the carp won. But that's carp fishing. Sometimes it can be very exciting and sometimes terribly disappointing. Having just lost a fish, and also earlier I had one or two short pulls which didn't materialise, I'm going to change the rig to a standard hair rig. So I'm fishing with particles, chickpeas and tiger nuts, and I'll use a fixed lead in this case. I like to use a fixed lead when fishing with particles because the fish feed in such a tight area, they don't swim away with the baits normally. So I like to use a fairly short hook link and a fixed lead. The fish really do get preoccupied on particle baits, so you don't want them chewing off the hook link or you not getting any indication. So I'll just put a standard hair on here, standard hair rig type setup. There's a lot of fish in this lake, more than 600 I'm told. Poplar Lake. A lot of fish between 5 and 15 pounds. There's probably quite a lot of competition for food. Going to use a Christon hook link. As I say, I've had 2 or 3 pickups this morning, but I don't think the fish actually had the hook in the mouth. Probably using a rig too advanced, too sophisticated for the water. It is easy to fall into the trap of using these super duper rigs on all waters. Right, the lead's on, which is going to be pushed onto the rubber, semi-fixed lead. Whoops, here we go. Still got the other rod out at the moment. Couple of bleeps there. Nothing seems to be happening. Right, hook. I'm going to use an 8 hair rig hook. Perfect hook for the job, really. Nice lightweight hook. Doesn't interfere too much with the natural action of the particle baits when the carp are feeding on them. Last thing you want is a big heavy hook. on most waters I would counteract the weight of the hook by making the bait more buoyant. But I think here for the minute we don't need to use that method. Right. Just trim that off. Double check again, all the knots are okay. Just bring that lead back. And push it over the rubber. So I now have semi-fixed lead. Fixed as far as the fish is concerned, but should the line or the fish get snagged, that can easily just pull off of there. No problem at all. Right, bait. So I'm using tiger nuts on one rod, which is out there at the moment. Very, very good particle bait. My favourite, in fact. I'm using chicks on this one. Chickpeas. Sweet corn is very good particle. Probably the best, but the only problem with the old sweet corn is that it can be picked up by all other species of fish, roach, bream, and it never fails for carp, but as I say, it becomes a problem when other fish start feeding on it. Really the best particles are peanuts, chickpeas, tiger nuts, maples, those sort of baits. And you must remember to make sure they're fully cooked and fully expanded. I always keep the tigers wet, so they're always fully expanded. It's safer for the carp, obviously, if they eat these particle baits that are not fully swollen and then they swell in the carp's stomach, then the carp could have a serious problem, especially if the angler's just thrown them in, the carp's come along and eaten them straight away, and then especially if it's eaten a lot of bait and then it swells in the stomach and puts the fish in distress. So all particle baits must be fully cooked and kept expanded. Tiger nuts, if you leave them out of water for a day or two, they contract again. I've got 2 chickpeas on here. If you was fishing a very hard water, it would be advisable to put a small piece of polystyrene in between the 2 chickpeas, just to counteract the weight of the hook. But these herring hooks are very, very light, so no problem here on this water, I shouldn't think. Okay, that's more or less a standard sort of herring, nothing special. We'll put that out, see what they think of it. I'm going to cast close to a little bush out there to my right. And then we'll put some free offerings around it. Just mind this oak tree. It's not often you see young oaks planted these days. It looks like a scarlet oak. I'll just put this out there. That'll do fine. I don't think we need to get inches from the bush. A couple of feet is fine. Nice light indicator so we can tell exactly what's happening. If there's fish in the swim and we're getting line bites, anything like that, we want to know about it. When I'm fishing a fixed lead with particles, I prefer to pull off quite a lot of slack so that the line is laying on the bottom in the vicinity of the bait and the fish, so you don't get too many line bites. When you're fishing close like this, pulling off the slack is good enough, but if you're fishing at range or sometimes close in, one can use a clip-on small lead just to clip it on the line and let it go down to the bottom fairly close in so that the line is nice and tight to the bottom. I'll just put some bait out around that one we've just cast. These chicks are just cooked in water, they're not flavoured, but flavoured chicks are good. We'll just put some out there. Usually with particles it's best to put quite a lot in. You want to really get the fish going. We'll put in 7 or 8 pouchfuls to start with. There's a lot of fish in here, so you probably couldn't put too many in on a lake like this. I prefer to bait up little and often, rather like a match angler does. Then you know most of the time there's some baits out there. It's best to keep an eye out on the area where the baits are, to see if any bubbling occurs. You really want to know if the fish are taking the free offerings. They can clear the whole area and leave your hook bait, and you don't want to be sitting out there with just the hook bait, not normally. Right, I think that will do nicely to start with, and we'll see what happens. I say these are just ordinary chickpeas cooked in water. Nothing special. Right, all okay. The fish open bail arm clipped up. Nice light indicator so we can tell if anything's happening. We'll just wait and see if we can catch one of these poplar mirrors. I believe there's 1 or 2 commons in here as well. Action on the chickpeas. Didn't take long for them to work. Don't think it's a very big fish, but they're all welcome. Oh, it's a tench, I think, by the looks of it. Obviously not only carp like chickpeas. One of the problems with particle baits, you do tend to catch more other species. Lovely tench. Pretty lively one at that. Looks like the hooked the net a little bit there. In fact, the hook is on the outside of the mouth of the tench. There you go. Male tench, about £2. Lovely fish. Just put him back. Lovely big dorsal fin. Back it goes. There's not much you can do when fish like tench get on the baits. You just have to plod on and hope that some carp come along. As soon as some carp come along, the tench should move out. But you must remember that the tench are mopping up the ground bait, so you have to try and assess just what bait is being taken and how much is left there. So what I'll do is I'll just top the swim up with about 25% of what I put out initially, assuming that it's just one or two tench there. If we catch another tench, I'd be inclined to put quite a lot more bait in to see if we can attract the carp. Just put a second one on. Instant bait chickpeas are, they work on 90% of lakes. Been around for years and nothing new, but good steady bait. Just tie the hair to the bottom of the hook. I'd say it's standard hair rig setup, nothing special. It's probably all that's needed for a lake like this. Pointless getting too technical. In fact, if it was tench we were after, I would alter the rig now, because that tench was hooked on the outside of the mouth, which means that the hook link tightened up before the hook went into the mouth. So we would need a longer hook link if we were fishing for tench at the moment. But I won't adjust it because it's carp we're after this morning. And we'll just put that back out again. Line twisted around the rod tip. That's it. I'll just double check I checked the hook knot, but Just double check the lead knot. That's okay. Should always check knots every single time you reel in. The next fish could be a fish of a lifetime, you don't want to lose it. Right, I'm going to tie a tiger nut onto here. As I say, these are absolutely fantastic bait, one of my favourites. They're a root crop grown in Spain. Marvellous bait. I like to eat them too. I just imagine they're very nice flavoured, but normally they work best just cooked in water. The way that I do them normally is to just pre-soak them for a short while, for about half an hour, and then I put them in a pressure cooker and cook them in a pressure cooker for about half an hour. You just have to make sure they're fully expanded. If you're boiling them in a saucepan, then they need doing a bit longer. But no matter how you do them, as long as they're fully expanded, they're going to be safe to the carp. They're a very hard bait. Having trouble getting the needle through this one. Some people worry about the hardness, but it's the hardness that makes them so good. Other fish don't like taking them, roach and bream, because they're so hard, and I think the carp love to crunch them. And it also encourages the carp to pass them back to the throat teeth for chewing, which I think is a good thing. That's a tiger nut. It's tied to a light piece of nylon. Often when I'm fishing tigers on a difficult water, I would drill a hole through the tiger just with an ordinary small twist drill. It's easily done by hand, and then push polystyrene into the hole to make the bait more buoyant. You can of course put some polystyrene on the hook, but nowadays I prefer to make the actual bait more buoyant. The carp are quite clever really. If you've got 1,000 tiger nuts out there and one of them is just a little bit heavier than the rest, you can bet your bottom dollar that that will be the one that's left behind. So normally with tigers I would drill them out, put some polystyrene in them, and then the results are usually better. Another one with a taste for particle baits. They're lovely fish, look at that. Lots of lovely scales, especially towards the back there, lovely. We won't bother to weigh him, he's 7 or 8 pounds I suppose. Just carry him back to the water. Lovely. What a lovely fish, look at that. Beautiful. Certainly getting some runs on the particle baits now. Yep, fish was coming towards me, that's why the line was so slack. It's one of the disadvantages of fixed lead fishing, of course. Small carp. Fish was on there all the time. They sometimes come towards you and the line goes slack. That's why it pays at night to not have your bobbins down at the bottom. When you can't watch your line, you need your indicators high up on the needle, so if you get dropped back in the night, you know all about it. It's only a small fish, but it's putting up a bit of a struggle. It's going under the other line. Oh, it's picked up the other line, unfortunately. Little mirror on the chickpea rod. I think we'll put him straight back before he damages himself. It's a lovely looking fish. In fact, that is lively. I think we'll carry him back in the sling. If you've got a lively fish, it's a better way to carry it. There you go. Yep, another one. Another one with a lovely taste for particles. Let's get the net. Another one of those pretty mirrors. They certainly fight under the rod tip. Taking a bit of line now. Oh, lovely. The old chickpeas have certainly worked well today. Just shows you, hasn't always got to be boilies. It doesn't want to come in. Oh, the line's caught round the fin. It's unusual, often catches around the dorsal, but not one of the, not the anal fin. It's funny, as soon as you pull the fish off balance like that, it doesn't fight so well. Oh, I was just going to lift the net then. No point in rushing it. Right. Lovely. Another nice looking mirror. Whoops. Fin's just caught a little bit on the net there. Might be a double. Nicely hooked in the bottom lip. In fact, it's well hooked in the bottom lip, double hooked. I certainly do scrap under the rod tip, these fish. Whew. I don't think we'll weigh that, it's probably about 8 or 9 pounds. I'll just put her back. Lovely looking fish. Oh. Back she goes. Lovely. The action on Poplar continued throughout the morning, and I managed to take a couple more fish on particles before temperatures well into the 90s brought most of the carp onto the surface. The heat also encouraged the snakes to come out, and these kept us company on and off throughout the day. We now go on to another water in Northamptonshire, but we'll be returning to Poplar later to try our luck on the surface. Well, here we are at the mid-Northants carp fishery at Higham Ferrers in Northants. Just going to put a bait out slightly short of the middle. It's a very well-known carp water run by Duncan Kay, a name which most people have heard of. I've been fishing the water on and off now since 1976, and what a jolly good carp water Duncan's produced. He's been running it since the early 70s, and it's just got better and better all the time. He's run it primarily as a carp water, but also as a mixed fishery. There's some big pike in here, and zander, and one or two other specimen fish, bream, etc. And the fish have gradually grown and grown to over 40 pounds. And he really has achieved something here. Beautiful water. It's about 4.5 acres. The main lake that we're fishing now. There's another small lake just over the other side of the bushes over there, but so with smaller fish. Unfortunately, this is going to be our last year on this lake. The land's been purchased by a gravel company, and they've already started working in the field over the back there. So all the fish have got to be moved out of this lake in the autumn, in a couple of months' time, to a lake down the road, only about 3 miles away, which Duncan's managed to acquire. So, for me, it's a sad ending really, because I caught my first 30-pound carp here, and earlier this year in January I caught a 40 from here. My first 30, my first 40. I've had most enjoyable trips here. So it's sad really that the fishery is going to come to an end. I think Duncan will be down possibly later. We can ask him some more details of exactly what's happening, because I haven't fished here much lately, but it's certainly a nice water. The big fish is known as two-tone. It's called two-tone because it's sometimes two-tone in colour, not always, but sometimes. And I particularly remember that fish because it was stocked at a very small weight. I think it was 4 or 5 pounds in the early 70s, about 73 I think. And it was caught, I think it was first caught at about 13 pounds, and I had it myself in 76 from a swim opposite here at 19 pounds. So I'm particularly fond of that fish, having caught it at various weights up to just over 40. And there's some very nice fish in here. The average weight is very high. 2 out of 3 fish are 20s, so if you get one, it's usually a good one. Right, let's have a look at the rigs we're going to use today. I'm going to use 2 completely different rigs. I'm going to use the bent hook rig on one rod, and a different rig on the other, mainly because I haven't fished here for a few months and I don't know which rigs are working best. This is the bent hook rig which I'm going to use, using a 3-ounce semi-fixed lead. It's not permanently fixed, it can pull off of the rubber should the fish get snagged in a weed or a tree or something. That's tight fitting onto that rubber. So as far as the fish is concerned, it's a fixed lead. Another piece of rubber there just to stop the line getting damaged against the lead. I'm using a nylon hook link. Most people use Christon or Dacron type hook link, but I've found nylon to be better with this rig. It's fairly light nylon, it's about 7 pounds breaking strain. The well-known bent hook, very sharp, boilie mounted. For today, about 1/4 of an inch off of the hook. That's variable. You can pull the Dacron through the silicone rubber on the hook there to make it longer or shorter, the way I've got it set up. Because it's a pop-up, I've got a shot on the line there. You can use various types of weights there to balance the pop-up, such as putty, etc. And that's the bent hook rig, and in theory the hook should turn as it's taken across your finger. It should turn and hook your finger. If that doesn't work like that, then you've probably not got it right. Okay, so it should turn into your finger, and the theory behind it is a carp comes down, takes the bait and hook like so, and then backs off slightly, and as the line tightens, the hook turns into the bottom lip. And that's in theory what should happen. So that's the bent hook rig. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use on one rod. It's hard fished water, this is. It's the lake sees lots of different rigs and baits, and it's fished every day by good carp anglers. So we've got to use advanced rigs on this type of water. Now this rig is the helicopter rig. I'm using a Christon hook link. The main advantage of this rig is that it doesn't tangle. Often people use the lead attached to that swivel there, but because there's a lot of weed out in front here, it's very, very weedy, Canadian pondweed and blanket weed, I've actually attached the lead with a fine hook, length of line, about 4 pounds breaking strain. I'm using a power gum stop knot there to stop the hook link sliding up there. So in reality it's a fixed lead, like so, and as it flies through the air, the hook link encircles the lead, and that's why it's called a helicopter rig. It's just a very good anti-tangle setup. So that's what I'm going to use on the other rod, and until we can find out which rig's working the best. I may continue with the 2 different rigs, adjusting them in different ways, or I may catch a couple of fish on one and then change the other rod to the same. It's really a matter of seeing how we go. So there's 2 fairly advanced rigs there, necessary for a water like this one. Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. Oh,
Hot.
certainly is. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, thanks. As usual.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a sad trip for me because, as you know, I don't come down here so much in the summer. I like to fish it in the winter a bit, and this looks like it's going to be the last year here. Is that?
Oh,
You've got the up-to-date gen. What's happening?
Yeah, it'll be the last year. Well, I don't know exactly what will happen, but the field's going to be dug up for gravel. So they want to empty the lake, etc. And they've done us a good deal. We've got a lake at Ringsted now, freehold. So nothing will happen to that. It's already been abstracted. And what we'll have to do basically is move the fish over from here to there during the next few months, so there won't be any next season.
So, would you like to guess what stock you've got in here? I mean, what is it, 4.5 acres?
Yes,
Is it about 4.5?
It's tough to estimate.
How many 20 pluses do you think you've got? It'd be nice to know your estimates now, because
yeah, I would say there's 100 carp in here.
Yeah.
Virtually all over 10 pounds, and I would imagine 60 of them are over 20 at a normal weight.
60 over 20, it's quite amazing.
2/3 roughly are over 20.
Yeah.
If you can go by captures over the years and rough estimates of what you see. That's all I can say. I would say there's half a dozen 30s, one of which goes over 40.
I've always wanted to know, I've always wanted to fish a lake. The lakes I've fished for years, I've often sat there and thought, you know, do we know exactly what's in here? And this is going to be one of those rare examples where we will.
So you don't know whether you're wasting your time or not. Isn't it? It's just to know, and if you know, you'll fish it. If you don't, well, of course,
Yeah.
the biggest, you know. Look
So-
somewhere else.
What about two-tone? That's probably one, or it's probably the biggest fish in here at the moment. Do you know how old the fish is? And
Well, I know almost exactly how old it is. It went in at less than 6 pounds, so I would say it was at the most 3 years old. The biggest of that batch was 6 pounds.
yeah,
They were young fish. That was, I would say it was born in 1971.
so that would make it 21 years now.
About
Yeah.
21 years. It's been caught, registered caught.
Is that 21? No, it's 19, isn't it?
No, it's 20. Well,
19 years, yeah. 71.
it's been
yeah.
actually registered caught at 78 times.
78 captures.
Yeah, that's absolutely guaranteed, you know, written down and whatever. It's no doubt been caught 1 or 2 other times, and it's been hooked I don't know how many times as well, so it's quite a friendly fish. I mean, I've had it 15 times from way back, you know, once a year, 3 times this year,
Yeah.
nothing the next, you know. Once it even swam into my landing net when it was spawning. didn't like that.
Do you think the big fish, most of the big fish in this country, such as two-tone, do you think they're carrying eggs most of the time, or do you think they're just big fish? Because I tend to think that most of the very big fish are females, and I tend to think that a lot of the time, even in the winter, they've got some eggs in them. What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely got something in. I assume it's eggs because it's mainly belly. You know, when it's low, it'll lose 6 pounds with spawning. Then it'll make it back, and it's all on the belly. It's not. It doesn't lose muscle or anything.
Yeah.
I'm sure they hold eggs all the year round. I mean, pike certainly hold them a long time. You've got the other fish, the mirror. That's a male, and that loses far less. And I assume that's because it's not storing eggs. It's only keeping the milt, and it loses it with the spawning and makes it back. And the level of that fish is much more constant. It only loses 1 or 2 pounds during the season.
Yeah.
And then it makes it up at a different time. Whereas the two-tone makes it up in the autumn. This thing will make it up in the late summer.
Just going back to a bit about what's happened here over the years, you've run it more as a mixed fishery, or you've tended to go for a mixed fishery rather than carp only, haven't you?
Yeah.
If you hadn't have run it that way and you just wanted big carp only, do you think by perhaps putting less carp in you would have got bigger fish, or do you think you've still arrived at the same end anyway?
Oh, I'm sure the weights would be bigger.
You think they
if
would,
I was that ruthless, I'd have been ruthless about the fish that are in it. Anything not putting on weight would have been whisked into the other lake, and I'd have to put new small fish in and see how they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah, you could push the fish higher. A two-tone would be, instead of 41ish, I'm sure it would be nearer 50.
Yeah?
I'm sure it would, yeah, with the food available.
Yeah.
But to me, that, it's fine if you've got a whole range of lakes, but I wanted this really, I mean, being selfish, I didn't want to travel all over the place. I wanted pike and carp and whatever on the doorstep. And whatever's suitable to the water, I've tended to look after.
Yeah.
And not have too many, but...
You used to have to be very careful who you accept in a syndicate, don't you?
Yeah.
You can't always accept the best anglers. You've got to accept people that can get on with others, and
you never know, really.
Mixed
You get a hunch about
types.
people, good or bad, but you can't ever be sure. But we've been lucky.
Yeah.
We haven't had the...
I mean, look at me, for instance. You thought I was good, and I'm terrific.
Well, that's it, yeah. I remember a few people were worried when you first joined, weren't they?
Oh yes, because I came down as a guest.
Because you used boilies, didn't you? I mean, that was a terrible thing to use boilies. 1975, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You were going to wipe everything out and no one would catch anything anymore.
That's right.
But,
Yeah,
what
that
are
was...
they using now, eh?
I remember I cast out to the middle. A chap came along and said to me, "What's that?" And I think it was a 2-ounce lead, and he couldn't believe the size of it, which was big for those days. I mean, now we use 2 and 3 ounce.
Yeah,
but
it was all free lining and light ledgering, wasn't it? Link ledgers.
Yeah.
And you fished. We used to fish 4 rods in those days. It was common to fish 4 rods. I mean, and these things were all within 15, 20 yards of the bank anyway. They were just,
and the hook used to get buried and that. And I remember
great
people...
big hooks, so they'd stick out the bait, just the point, nothing else. But you'd have to bury the rest of the hook.
The first times I fished here, I was using the old side hooked boilies, and there was a few remarks on those.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, talking of bits and bobs like that, didn't you catch the first ever carp on a herring? I seem to remember.
Yes, I often forget that. Over the other side there, in the rushes, I was frightened to try it in the daytime, and the first ever carp in England got caught over there. I think it was about 14 pounds.
So a lot of people
during the
claimed
night.
the herring, didn't they? Or variations of it and that. But to me, there was only one used deliberately for the way it was used. People did attach things to hooks and whatnot, but the herring was the first time it was actually used in that manner, to be sucked in and take the hook with it. Yeah. As distinct from attaching hemp and strings of beans.
That's right. Yeah, this is definitely the first lake the herring was ever used. Yeah.
The other thing, I always think it's a good thing in a way, bad thing, but Jack Hilton, he was the biz in the 60s, wasn't he? He he was caught everything. And he caught his last carp ever from here. He'd virtually given up fishing, and the Angling Times had a competition, Fish with a Star, they'd done beforehand, and he'd virtually finished fishing, but he honoured it, and he got a 16-pounder at the Little Lake. And that was, you know, that's something you're never going to see again.
I think you showed me a slide of that once, didn't you?
I think you've still got it.
Yeah. Have I?
I took several, yeah. I think you still got it somewhere.
That's
I've got a few at home.
Jack's last fish,
That was his last ever fish, yeah. Mind you, he had to sprint for it. It was on the other bank doing interviews at the time, and as he went one way, it went the other, you know.
Yeah.
And 16 common it was, yeah.
Just going back to the hair rig, just to keep the record straight, after Len Middleton and I had sort of perfected it on paper, we both said we'd use it the first opportunity we could, and I was lucky enough to get the first opportunity. It wasn't long, it was about a week later, I think, when Len was able to try it at another water. So this was the first by a week or so.
I found it most effective when I used to pull your rigs in that you'd lost on fish and things, and gradually we worked it out, and I tried it on other waters, and it was most effective indeed. I used to go down to Kent, and I didn't fish boilies, I used to fish the old red slime and green slime.
Yes, I remember that.
I attached it with a bit of cocktail stick, pushed it into the bane. It really did work, but I was just worried that the only thing about it was, okay, it worked, but when they got nervous, like they do in August, that we used to get foul hook fish, that the fish would get hooked in the eyes and faces, but it never happened, did it?
No, there was a lot of fears.
There's probably
there?
less foul hooking with their rig than there is with the old-fashioned ones.
Yeah, yeah.
It turned out
Well, I remember
anything bothered me.
I remember one or two clubs banned it, and one or two very famous anglers said it was unethical, and, but they're now using
Some
it.
claim to invent it first as well. There's quite a lot of that, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, there's lots of people that have been attributed to the inventing it, but it was definitely a joint invention between Len and myself. But it went well for me here when I first used it here, but so did everything else. I first came here with side hooked boilies, and that worked well for me.
Yeah.
Then I used yeast type boilies, and then munchies type boilies, and if you remember, all those things worked well for me. Then
it was
the hair
exciting
rig,
days though, wasn't it? This bait making and
very exciting. A lot of new,
concoction doing.
a lot of new things coming onto the scene, wasn't there?
Oh, I used to sit out, you know, wondering. I cast out, and I couldn't keep my eyes off the rods while I put another one out with a, you know, new bait and things, all sorts. And some good stuff came from it, and a lot of rubbish. But
Yeah.
they have some good baits that are not used now.
Yeah.
That have stood, you know, they would catch now if you went back. Like the old luncheon meat, people keep using it on waters, but the old Yestermin boilies and the red slime, green slime, wood slime, I mean, that was silly stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, wood slime.
And,
it was a cod levine type thing, wasn't it? I can't
yeah,
remember now, what
cod
was in it?
levine and mannitol in it and all sorts of funny bits and bobs. And,
yeah, that worked. Everywhere I tried it, it worked.
It certainly attracted them, the amount of twitches you used to get. But yeah, it was exciting days. It's probably a bit less exciting in some ways, but the quality of fishing has gone up. The catches are much better.
Yeah. Would you like to guess how many people have applied to fish here in the time you've run the place? Because that's interesting.
I gave up the waiting list probably 12, 14 years ago. And from then on, basically, it's been on sort of recommendation or people arriving at the right time.
Yeah.
Friends, brothers, you know, or someone rolls up and I think, well, he's a right character, you know, he's warped, he doesn't, I don't know, he just wants a good time or something, and he can fish properly, so they've got in. Or other times it's very serious recommendation. Other times, like you, people giving you a hard time.
Bending your ear.
Yeah. So
I can't remember what I did,
was to get back at them, you know, if they didn't want you in. Well, what was wrong? He's showing us how to fish properly with boilies, so you got in, you know.
They didn't regret me coming in.
Yeah. Sometimes I've had too much at the pub, and I mean, I've let, honestly, I've let people in I didn't know I'd let in. I've done it this year.
You'd have had a several hundred waiting list by now if you'd have kept
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
on the list that wanted to join, which is absolutely impossible.
Well, I
isn't
had a small piece in one of the papers about the new lake, not with these fishing, the one I'm starting
Yeah.
from afresh. And I've had about 80 replies to that, and that's on the strength of how this was run, let alone with these fishing. So there's nothing over £15 in there.
But they know you're going to turn it
They know it'll be
into
good
a
in
nice
future.
fishery, yeah.
As far as, you know, they're paying money with no fishing. But so they did here. I advertised in a paper, or when I advertised, a small write-up. Carp men wanted £25 a time.
I remember that, yeah.
And I got a syndicate without a single carp in here, and that
Yeah.
paid for the fish, and away we went.
Well, it's certainly a super place to fish. Many happy hours have been spent here by a lot of
right.
different people.
Yeah. There's also been a lot of black powder wasted over the years.
Yes, you are
Those
famous
things.
for your goings on.
Yeah, nearly out of them at the moment. I've been very sparing.
I remember one year you was trying to work out, perhaps I shouldn't really say this, but how much exactly how much explosive was needed to do something. I better not say what it was, unless you want me to.
Well,
And you was working
God,
out to
I
blow
can't remember
to
now.
blow a farm gate off its hinges,
Farm gate.
something like that. And one day you come back and you said, "Yes, I know exactly how much powder I need now." You probably don't remember
It
it.
wasn't this farm, so I'm trying to think which one it was. I know I was crystal and
It's a hobby though, is it? Basically, you're just interested
What,
in
explosives?
explosives and.
Oh no, not
No?
now. No, because I got in trouble over it. So I only buy, you know.
But
things
it was
you
a
can
hobby,
legally
wasn't it?
buy now. Oh yeah.
It was nothing else.
I was as keen about that as I was fishing
Yeah.
or shooting.
So all you do now is let off sort of crow scarers behind people and
Yeah,
things
that's
like that.
the ordinary fireworks, thunder flashes, and you know the theatrical type things. Stay on
that's
the right
another-
side of the law for once.
Another thing that this fishery is well known for, you often do some sort of display at the start of the season, don't you?
Yeah, I tried to.
rockets
Yeah, this season wasn't too good, but I did one once. Someone, well, I didn't do it. One of the members bought a firework. Trade price as well. It was £200.
£200 for
Yeah.
one
It
firework.
was a mortar, a twin mortar thing, all linked up, and oh, it was beautiful. There was all sorts. People saw it, police saw it, everything. 1,000 feet, 3 bursts.
And what did the carp think of it?
Well, I think by 9 o'clock, we let it off at midnight. By 9 o'clock, only 2 anglers hadn't caught fish. There'd been 15 20s out, and the only 2 that hadn't caught anything was Banger and myself, and we were the furthest from the explosion. And he went home, and I had 6 out of his swim up to 24. Poor bloke was the only one who didn't get any opening day 20s.
So the noise and light certainly doesn't put them
No,
off
no
here.
effect at all now. Nothing at all.
You'd think on opening night that would ruin the fishing, wouldn't
Yeah. If anything, it turns them on. I've done things, I've blown people up, and within 10 minutes they've had, it's happened too many times, you know, they've had ones. And it's always the person that gets blown up, it's not just the lake,
Yeah.
it's the person that gets it that catches the fish. It's become a bit of a joke. I mean, my wife fired a 12 bore once, just about here, just to try it out. She'd never fired one. And said, have a go at the lilies. And she fired this thing, and the wad dropped about 15 yards out in the lake, and the carp come straight up and took it. It must have been still warm, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, got one. Lovely. That just shows you, even in the wrong conditions, most of the fish are on top. You can still get a take on the bottom. Feels a good fish. It's kiting a bit. Along the right hand bank. I'll just go over this side, I think. Keep it away from the other line. Wouldn't like to guess what size it is, but it's probably a 20 plus. You can never be sure. Sometimes the big ones come in easy. sometimes the opposite. Just kiting back across the front of me now. As you can see her near the surface. Good fish, good 20. Got to try and keep it up. A lot of weed there. Just taking a bit of line. She stopped running now, so I'll just gain a bit of line. No, I don't think she's going to have it. No. I've got to walk along here a bit because there's a weed bed off to the left. I'm trying to actually guide it through a gap here in front. If I can get it to come through here, that's where I want it. I just want to get it in now. Jerking the rod quite violently there. It's definitely a good fish. And it just doesn't want to come in. Great. These Shimano's got lovely clutches, these new Shimano's. Just on the back here. I used to use Cardinal 55s, but they're no longer made. But these reels are jolly good. Quite happy with the replacement. Never thought I would be. I like to play my fish on the clutch. And there's not many reels that have got a good clutch. There she is, just below the surface again, and it's still not determined to come in. There she is on the top, beautiful. Let's see if we can get her in the net, shall we? No. Oh, what a fish. Very powerful fish. Come on, let's have you. Let's get that net underneath. And she's ours. Yep. Oh. Lovely fish. Just plonk it on there because there's not much grass around here, unfortunately. They certainly hook the fish well, these hooks. There she is. That was on the helicopter rig, but it's interesting to note that the light lead has actually broken away. It probably touched the weed bed that was out in front of me. Oh, certainly is hot. Very hot July day. Have to make sure everything that touches the fish is wet, especially in these conditions. There we are. Whew. Right. Just pull up gently, make sure she's in the bottom nicely. Yep. Whew. About 20, just under 26. It's a two-tone fish one side. Just hold her for a minute while she recovers. Lovely. Yeah. Just got to put a lead back on this one. Oh my God. Yes, another one. Unbelievable. Better put that rod on the rest in case I tread on it or something. It's funny how you can wait all that time and then all of a sudden it all happens at once. Very, very hot day today. Must be well into the 80s. Yet they're still taking bottom baits. Some fish on top cruising around. The water's quite clear and they can obviously see these baits only in, this one was in about 4 feet of water, so they can obviously see it from the surface anyway. Just taking a bit of line. So it was a good fish. It's just holding its own out there. Still coming in, but very slowly. Definitely some weed around the line up there. You can see it around the line. Feels a good fish. This one's on the bent hook rig. 3 ounce semi-fixed lead. So we've had one fish on each rig. It's strange, the fish is not doing hardly anything, it's just holding out there. I suppose it could be a bit of weed. I've got a bit of a problem here now. I've got some weed snagged in the top ring. I think I have to take a chance here, and the carp seems to have gone into that weed bed at the moment, so I might better get this off quickly. It's a problem with the blanket weed. Gets gummed up in the tip ring, that's better. This is stuck in the weed bed now. Oh, I can feel it moving, so she should be coming out. There she comes. Oh, it's got a lot of weed around it, that's why it hasn't really fought much, I think. There she is, got her. Lovely. Whew. That looks a good fish. Yeah, mind you, weed's fairly heavy. Got a little roach or something in there as well. Hooked in the bottom lip, like they always are, nearly always are with the bent hook rig. There you are. Unbent hook. Ah, that's a nice fish. A little bit of mark there. Upper double. About 18, I would say. I don't know as we need to weigh it really. Not absolutely necessary. I'd say about £18. Nice fish. 2 in a row plus a tench. Can't be bad. Just let him recover a bit. There he goes. It pays to keep an eye on any new developments in carp fishing, and this is one that's just appeared. It consists of a lead with 2 cutaways made to take these capsules, which you normally fill up with flavour using a hypodermic syringe. So you attach the capsules to the lead with an elastic band. You see there's a groove in the lead here. Attach the capsules first, inject flavour into the capsules, and after a few minutes these dissolve in water, thereby attracting the fish, hopefully. I've not used this myself yet, but this is just an example of new things coming onto the market. What I'd like to see, in fact, with this is 2 capsules with different dissolve rates. So perhaps one dissolves within 5 minutes of casting, perhaps the other one dissolves within 25 minutes of casting. I wouldn't want to see both dissolving together. That's just one example. This is from Bob Baker. There's lots of well-known carp anglers coming up with new ideas all the time. So you must keep an eye on the magazines, papers, and talk to other anglers and pick up any new developments that are coming along. Oh! That took it and spat it out.
Here we are back on Poplar Lake, fishing on the surface with chum mixer. Chum mixer is a type of small dog biscuit that can be bought from any pet shop or supermarket. I'm fishing a floater rig using a Nash controller. The fish are very shy, so I'm using a lighter breaking strain hook link than the main reel line. This link is attached to the main line by a swivel, and I always like to use a small bead between this and the controller. The hook I'm using is a small, lightweight partridge herring hook. When fishing with single mixers, like I am today, it is best to use a lightweight hook which cannot sink the bait.
Ah. Quite amazing.
Mixers can be pre-soaked for a while to make them easier to put the hook through. Sometimes I bore a hole through them with a hair baiting needle and then threadle them down the hook link onto the eye of the hook, in which case it is best done before soaking.
That's my best chance now. There's a free offering about 6 inches from the hook bait. So take the free offering first, and then the hook bait. How about that for running commentary? Well, I haven't seen the fish properly yet. Perhaps it's a reasonably good one. Don't think it's quite a double.
Certainly likes to swim around. This fish must be nearly ready now. Very good fight from such a small fish. Absolutely amazing. There she is. Certainly a very hard fighting fish. No, not quite over the net. Yeah. Lovely. What a superb fight from such a lovely, might go a double just about. You certainly like chum mixers, don't you? Okay, let's put her back.